Welcome, everybody. Thanks, John. You're on tomorrow, mate. Save your claps for tomorrow. Thank you for coming. Thanks for coming, Matt. So good that you're here. You brought the crowd. Let's have a quick word of prayer and then we'll get into things, hey? Father, we thank you for an opportunity to meet here again in this tent as we discuss this important topic. We ask that your Spirit would be amongst us and that we could build the kingdom of heaven through the thoughts, the dreams, the visions that you give us today. Amen. So we've got 4 sessions scheduled in the manual, in the booklet, in the camp booklet. And we have 3 sessions worth of content, and we'll see how we go with those 3 as to whether or not we run on Friday. On Thursday, there's actually a practical event. There's a service opportunity happening in Cooma, but there's apparently 20 able-bodied youth going on that already. So we don't have to join in with them. So that's the extra day was going to be that. So why here and now? Tomorrow, John has a large range of exceptional things that are happening in the States that he's been involved in that we want to share with you, to give you some dreams and visions. And then there's, on Thursday, we'll have a bit of a Q&A, show some potential for Queanbeyan. We'd love to get everybody from the Canberra region in the room, and we'll talk about what's possible there. So that's a little bit of the outline of where we're headed. Money back guarantee, just a quick disclaimer. I've been thinking, pondering, dreaming about these topics since 2017, and I have not been paid to think about Australia-level marketing strategies whatsoever. So if there's anything I say here today that you don't like, feel free to come and get your money back from me. It has all happened in spare time. Adventist branding in Australia is the topic. Just somebody said, a friend of mine said to me the other day, they loved the Three Angels Messages logo the best. So my question for them is, which one? Which one did you like the best? And anyone with 3 angels. Very good. So that's the ones I could find quickly. The bottom one is an AY logo. But there was quite a few logos. It wasn't until 1996 that Raymond Dabrowski, 1996. The year was 96. It was historic as the unified church public identity was adopted for a worldwide church. As a global church body, we had no logo before 1996. Who knew that? So this was not some sort of a conspiracy to get rid of the Three Angels Messages. It was just simply the first one. Before that, it wasn't properly organized. And some other excerpts from his article. There is only one correct usage of the name Seventh-day Adventist. The correct spelling of the church name includes a hyphen between the seventh and the day, and the D for day is lowercase. There are 2 identifying beliefs in our name. We are believers in the second coming of the advent of Jesus, and we keep the seventh day Saturday as Sabbath. Along with the corporate identity meaning and application, it is also established that the official abbreviation for the full name of the church is Adventist rather than SDA. That's the communications director from 1996. Who's familiar with the lay activities department? So on Saturday afternoon, one of my lay activities is I jump on Google Maps and I search for Adventist churches in Australia, and I make edit suggestions on their names to bring them more in line with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I need to get a life. That's my lay activities. That's how I like to bless the church. So there was, thank you. You can do it too. You can do it too. But there was 17 on this afternoon. I got bored after 5 minutes and I stopped. But 17 little notifications there to say your place edit title has been accepted, and I'm up to 4,700 points in Google Local Guides for providing this guidance, with 8 million views on my church photos. If you have a church and you don't have adequate, recent, happy, smiling faces on Google Maps, you should. You can and you should. So you should do that through Google Local Guides. If you type SDA into Google, you will find the Shop Distributive and Allied Employees Association. That's why we shouldn't be using SDA. It's more easily confused. If you type in Adventist, you will find us as the main Adventist church very quickly. 2015 was when James Standish and the division began the signage rebranding, and it was paused, delayed till 2017, 2018. Can you tell the difference between the two? What is it? It's basically the font. The font they wanted to update to a global font system. It has a capital everything, and so all the fonts changed. The colour scheme, basically every division was left to choose their own colours. So North America chose the blue, the dark blue, and or denim, and then Australia was allowed to continue with campfire or Adventist orange. That's when we moved full steam ahead, more so with the signage project, and that's just a little bit of history on that. So now over to the main topic of the day. These are the things that we're going to be unpacking. I have been preaching a sermon based on this in a few churches. There is a bit of overlap, but I've tried to take out a lot of the sermon stuff and add a lot more historical stuff just to give you full context. A Dorcas Society is to open this week to examine and remodel old and new materials to help the needy. 1895. Who knows where that photo is? Sunnyside, Kurrambong, the Holy Land. So this is just historical records of Ellen White having a Dorcas Society in her house in Kurrambong in 1897. As far as I can find in my research, that's one of the first Dorcas Societies in Australia. Every time you see an orange number on the left of the screen here, this is the church manual when it was updated and republished. So 1932, 34, 38, 40, 42, this is how it's published in the church manual. There is a Dorcas Society. This is a local church department that every local church can have. The church manual is the highest authority outside of the General Conference session, and at the General Conference session, they revise, update, approve, and then republish the next church manual. From 1949 to 2000, Australia was split into two different unions. I don't know why, but Justin is the oldest person in the room. Do you know why?
They said we would get 32 more pastors in the field. That was mythology.
Okay.
That didn't happen. But that's what they told us.
They said in this model or the new model we'd get 32 more?
When they changed, I was employed when we had that.
Okay.
There were two union presidents went back to one, and they were supposed to get 32
Okay.
more.
So this was the way it started, and then they eventually changed. I'll show you the map of that when we get there, when we get up to 2000. This is 1950 in the Herald in Melbourne. Now, Victoria was quite the bastion of strength for these kind of lay activities. This was all part of the Sabbath School Personal Ministries Department. As a welfare officer for the Seventh-day Adventists, spelled incorrectly, since 1932, she investigates all applications for assistance. Mrs. Cornell has been taking homeless people into her own home. She is helped in her work by a band of voluntary workers. Each Seventh-day Adventist church has its own Dorcas Society. That was quite common in 1950. Some of you here will remember that and have been part of that. Just Russ. Okay. 1951, it adopted the name Welfare. It became the Dorcas Welfare Society. And in 1953, the General Conference broadened the concept of service to urban ministry, titled a new umbrella ministry called Seventh-day Adventist Health and Welfare Services, or SAWS, and that was one of the original logos. Quite rare to find that logo. In 1958, just a few years later, this is in Pennsylvania. It says, Sunshine was a welcome guest along with 52 worthy boys at the Adventist Community Service Camp near Rossiter Park, Pennsylvania. 20 camp leaders and counselors feel that this was the finest group sent in by the communities of Western Pennsylvania to this free camp. Do we run camps in this conference? And who do we run them for? Mainly Adventists. Here's an idea for you. Could we run a free camp? The president opened the session by giving several good reasons. This is the same magazine, the article right next to it. It says Health and Welfare Workshop. A health and welfare workshop was conducted for the Dorcas and missionary officers of the East Pennsylvania Conference. Who's currently the Dorcas and missionary officer in South New South Wales? Oh, okay. They just brought it back, but generally we didn't have one. The president opened the session by giving several good reasons as to why we should be doing welfare work. 59 and 63, the church manual mainly remained the same, but they also added the Church Missionary Committee and they added the Health and Welfare Centre because they started to see that there was community centres being established. So they were called Health and Welfare Centres in line with the branding. In 63 in Australia, we started operating quit smoking programs under Adventist Community Service. It was advertised as a service of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We had a dial-a-prayer service in Bunbury in 1966. In everywhere the dial-a-prayer has been established, it has become evident to us that this Seventh-day Adventist Community Service has been of real benefit to many people. People in spiritual and emotional need, elderly people and the young. In 67, the Dorcas Welfare Society have primary responsibility also for community welfare services. The language is starting to shift and they're starting to add it to the manual. In 72, officially, Adventist Community Services changed that red shield and became the primary brand for local church service. And the Seventh-day Adventist Welfare Services changed to the Seventh-day Adventist World Services with an international development focus. These topics were being discussed thoroughly back then as well, and we published this one in Southlands for you all to read. As it relates to disinterested benevolence, in no way can you infer that such a message is an appeal to hide the church's identity, to water down the spiritual emphasis, or to place the gospel as secondary to the humanitarian services. They wanted everybody to know. In 76, health and welfare centres were replaced with community service centres, and the Dorcas and Welfare Society still have responsibility for the community welfare services. Seventh-day Adventist World Services Director Pastor Howard Burbank from the General Conference headquarters told a gathering of Adventist community service workers in Melbourne in January 21, 1976-77. Pastor Burbank went on to explain that the relationship between SAWS and Adventist Community Services is that SAWS is the church's outreach to the developing nations, whereas Adventist Community Services is the church's outreach within affluent nations. However, the personnel of community services play a very vital part in making available certain supplies, such as stockpiling clothing, in SAWS depots in readiness for disasters. At the present time, SAWS has only 2 depots, and these are located on either side of the United States. Plans are now being made for a 3rd depot to be located in Australia, near Sydney, to serve the developing countries of the South Pacific and the Far East. By 1978, 2 years later, SAWS established its first office in Australia to assist people in the South Pacific, and SAWS received its first government grant to do so. In 77, this is in Melbourne, wherever the workers go, they are known for their ability not only to supply physical comfort, but also to answer the cry from the heart. And this recognition has resulted from projects where they have been involved, the Darwin disasters, feeding police search and rescue squads. Adventist Community Services has chalked up an enviable record of disinterested acts of kindness, valued and recognised by the leaders of the State Emergency Service. In 81, the Dorcas Welfare Society dropped the welfare part. It went back to Dorcas Society, and welfare was taken out of the community services that they were in charge of. There was concerts held on behalf of Seventh-day Adventist Community Services. There was a royal well done from Prince Charles and Princess Di when they came to thank the people who helped out in the Ash Wednesday fires. And in this same magazine, they're also telling you to focus on SAWS, the world services, not just the local services. The division in 1984 changed the name, officially adopted the new name of ADRA for the Seventh-day Adventist World Services, and moving forward since then it's been known as ADRA. 86 to 95, the church manual remained somewhat the same. Do you guys remember this logo? ADCARE. I haven't found any merch. Has anybody got any merch still from that? No. how ADCARE works. So this was a brainchild of Alwyn Salem, not a common name. In 93, 94, they decided that ADCARE would be the organisation that provides an umbrella for all community outreach ministries in the local church. This is a division decision, and it's a decision for Australia and New Zealand only. It was a rebranding of Adventist Community Services to become ADCARE, and ADCARE stood for Adventist Community Care. It includes functions of the former Adventist Community Services, but not including the Bible-centred ministries. Why? I don't know. We've been talking about holistic ministry, but this one was not to include Bible-centred outreach, or are not operated in existing departments or churches. So they said it was a new concept. They said it would bring new things. It looks very much to me like the same things: community needs and community education. That was ADCARE in 94. In 94, back over the ditch in America, it says, we must prepare. This is a special edition about who is my neighbour. We must prepare. The first step in preparing for a disaster is just that. You have to get started. Where to start? Your local Adventist Community Services, usually working hand in hand with ADRA, on many fronts, is the place to start. If your local branch is inactive or worse, non-existent, consider building it up. You can help your church become prepared to meet a disaster by working with or building up the Community Services Department. The article goes on to say, any church that shows its care and concern for the community through active, loving members and relational programs will begin to grow and prosper. ADCARE is the name of the revitalised community service agency operating in Australia and New Zealand of the South Pacific. It aims to provide relational community outreach ministries to meet the needs in cities and towns. ADCARE and the Global Mission GC Department have put together a series of seminars and resources called Reaching People in Our Community. For instance, in Brisbane, there's a skills training ministry for unemployed youth, and it has been started. In the city of Hobart, there is a long-term ministry to refugees. Community service is one of our most effective means of breaking down prejudice, creating goodwill for our churches. Take a good look at your community, conduct a survey if necessary to identify your needs, then take a good look at your church and the resources that you have in response. In 97, the South Pacific Division began planning for future positive direction of the Adventist Appeal. Who here used to collect for the Adventist Appeal? I think I wasn't collecting at 7 years old, 8 years old. They wanted to ensure that they were able to raise the profile of ADCARE, establish more financial accountability for the appeal and ADCARE, and assess the potential of new marketing and fundraising methods. But within 5 years of launching, ADCARE was rebranded, shut down, and rolled into ADRA-CARE. What will happen to ADCARE and Adventist Community Service names? Corporately and legally, there'll be one name, ADRA. However, we may consider marketing ADRA under additional names where necessary. We don't have all the answers yet, so we must keep the dialogue open. Conference ADCARE directors will be renamed ADRA directors, and we'll have a close working relationship with them. So the appeal used to go 25% to ADCARE and 75% to ADRA. And there was quite a lot of really good projects at the time. Safari, I was in Brisbane, I think, Brisbane Adventist College, and they were fundraising for Safari on the doors because it was a RPA hospital. It was a really big thing, and so it was easier to raise funds for something that was well known. Things like this encouraged the shift of the Adventist appeal to become the ADRA appeal. It's around a similar time that this shift happened that the Union Conference was created, and so that means a complete shift and changing of the guard somewhat of all your administrative layers at the same time that the division was suggesting this shift to ADRA taking charge of the local church departments. The Dorcas Society was changed in the church manual in 2000 to become the Community Services or Dorcas Society, and that remained through to 2010's edition. In 2008, there was a book that came out, and I just found this again yesterday, I think. ACS is a descriptive label for a wide range of public services provided by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's also the name of the denomination's community action organisation that operates at the church level. The Adventist Community Services leaflet is a tool for creating an organised response to the needs in your community. It is intended for an international audience. This is not intended to be just a North American thing. In fact, on Chapter 1, Why Adventist Ministries of Compassion, on Sabbath morning, during Sabbath school and church, skateboarders can often be seen riding past the main doors of the Central Coast Community Church in Wyong, New South Wales. The church meets in a community youth centre facility next to a skateboard park. For several years, CCCC church members have provided breakfast 5 days a week. Australia and Pastor Wayne Krause are the poster child of Adventist Community Services in the training booklet. Be visible and active in the community on page 8. Adventist Community Services works to foster a strong public awareness of the Seventh-day Adventist Church as a caring, Christ-centered resource in the community. A growing, healthy Adventist congregation works to make itself visible in the community and known as an asset to the neighbourhood. ACS programs and personnel are key tools in this effort. Visibility requires the use of publicity through an active communication representative and advertising program, placement of the denomination's media ministries and publications in the local context. There's even a whole page explaining that we actually need both. We don't just need one. The Adventist Development Relief Agency and Adventist Community Services. ACS is the channel through which local Seventh-day Adventist churches address the needs of their immediate community, neighbourhood or city. People often ask, what is the difference between the two? Why can't we call ourselves ADRA or merge our efforts into one organisation? ADRA is the official non-government organisation sponsored by the church to provide international relief and development. As such, their efforts receive funding support from governments and companies who require them to have a separate administrative financial program, management structure from the church and its other institutions. The Seventh-day Adventist Church needs both ACS and ADRA. ACS operates on behalf of local churches, motivating, training, equipping and mobilising church members at the grassroots level. ADRA is a church-owned agency that works at a global level. There is occasions where it is appropriate to work in concert with ADRA on specific local projects. ADRA personnel are an excellent resource for training ACS workers on planning ACS projects. ADRA does a wonderful job at what they do, and they often have the most experience and experts, and especially in our context, because we've shut down everything else and we've really pumped that up. So praise the Lord that we have experienced experts in that space to help grow the local church. February 2011. This is the first of the surveys that I can find. If you've got more, please send them to me. Seventh-day Adventists do not give blood or accept blood transfusions. What do you think? 82% of people were wrong or clueless. So, people didn't quite understand who we were. Adventist versus mainstream Christianity. We were considered 17% positive as we relate to mainstream Christians, 38% negative, worse than mainstream Christianity, and 45% the same as mainstream Christianity. The church manual was upgraded to be the Adventist Community Services in 2015, and in 2022 it's remained the same. 2015, James Standish first rolled out this video that some of you might have seen. This is Do You Know Who the Adventists Are video. I'm not going to play it for you. It's 5 minutes long. It's on our YouTube channel. I can make it available to you. And this was the mainly the launch of the signage rebrand, but he also pointed out the fact that we're quite behind in our branding and we don't have a unified house of brands. We're quite scattered. There was that pause, like I mentioned earlier, where the GC upgraded the fonts. And at the similar time, 2017, in North New South Wales, Paul Gillen was working on a manual for local churches, a practical guide to discovering the heart of God for your church, serving humanity. The reason I'm giving you this history is because people have been giving me alternate versions of history that don't match the reality, so I'm just making sure we all know how things went. It was happening, it was underway, and my recollection, Justin, you tell me if you remember differently, but it was Paul and I in the room, and he said, we're about to start this church department called Serving Humanity, And I said, please don't, that's a terrible name, give me 24 hours. And I went and read the church manual, and the situation was quite clear. It should have been called Adventist Community Services, something that we had given up long ago. So they called it Adventist Community Services. This is a full record of all the ABNs that were registered and deregistered that have anything to do with Adventist Community Services or ADRA over the years. Stormco is even in there. 2004 was the last AUC registered Adventist Community Services name, and at a very similar time, the ADRA Australia ABN was set up as the shift, the legal shift in structures happened. 2017 was when Paul Gillen re-registered Adventist Community Services, and then they changed it to all capitals in 2021. But that happened completely without Tom Evans' input. Tom was from America, but had nothing to do with this shift. This was driven by local conference strategy. In May 2022, the next McCrindle study came out, and you saw Justin put up a slide the other night. 2 in 3 individuals have never seen any Seventh-day Adventist marketing before. What do you believe is the benefit of churches, general Christian churches, to the wider community? 50% or more of people say that they should be helping people in need, providing social connection, providing people with hope and spiritual guidance. When thinking of the following church denominations, which of the following best describes you? Seventh-day Adventists rank third last at 14% positive, 43% negative, and 43% unknown. We have an 86% opportunity to do something about that. 50% of people say that the church is necessary and relevant. 50% of the community, the wider community, and only 14% of them like us. So who's stuffing it up? Who is it? Who's the mean person? It was a rhetorical question, but somebody's giving me an answer, so let me. Yeah. Yeah, there's been some terrible tragedy stories where we've received a lot of bad press. Say that again? It possibly does, but that was quite some time before 22. That was 82. It's possible for some old-timers, yeah. When James did his video in 2015, somebody said, oh, they're the people that ride their bikes around. How long since we've been riding our bikes around knocking on doors? So they're the Mormons, so he might just be confused too. Which of the following do you see as key characteristics of the Seventh-day Adventist Church? Bible believing is strongest at 26% in Australia, 31% in New Zealand. We're not mainstream. I don't know if that's cool or not. But as you read down the list there, we're only 14% welcoming, according to this survey. And unfortunately, we're only 0% at helping people, which is a real shame. It does have 11% serving people in need. Somehow that's different from helping people. So we'll split the difference and say we rank 5%, whereas 55% of people say that the church should be helping people in need. So we're 50% of the population behind, half of Australia, according to this survey. If these stats don't shock you, I don't know what will. For the last 10 years, we've become 3% less positive, 5% more negative, and 2% more familiar. The problem with that is the more they get to know about us, the less they like us. Something seriously wrong with how we are marketing ourselves. Oh, there it is. That's why. Possibly. That might have something to do with it. We have such a mixed house of brands here that it's very hard to link back even our schools to our corporate church identity. And our schools are a huge part of our community. If we break them up into categories of helping, teaching, health, and religion, we just look nothing like ourselves, unfortunately. Everybody wants to be unique and independent and create something new. And I would suggest that some of our internal brands become our strongest external brands. Something that we might use to inspire our kids and motivate our teens becomes the public face of our ministry. For 32 years in Australia, we have been helping people under other brands that don't relate back to our brand in any quick way without needing to decode something. And the manual back here in 2008, released by the General Conference for International Usage, was to saying you need to be visible public awareness. You need to foster strong public awareness of the Seventh-day Adventist Church as a caring, Christ-centered resource in the community. But every caring, Christ-centered resource that we've given them has been branded something completely different. Early this year, or late last year, the division has given me the branding standards for Adventist Community Services again, and it obviously matches the church signage rollout, the redesign project. And so I have a couple of suggestions to make, or at least one suggestion and 5 ways to implement it. And here's the part where you might want your money back. So if you can think of something better, let me know. Happy to hear it. Suggestion/opinion. I added opinion because you might have a different one. Every public-facing ministry of the church should carry the Adventist name and flame or be dual-branded where possible. Australia is not under persecution. There is no reason to hide. When I asked some of the leadership about why it is that we use another brand and that we somehow within our marketing seem to hide our brand sometimes, they said that this is the brand that is used in places where we are under persecution, where we can't use the church's brand. That makes complete sense. In Australia, we are not under persecution. Here's a quote. The work which the church has failed to do in a time of peace and prosperity, she will have to do in a terrible crisis under the most discouraging and forbidding circumstances. The warnings that worldly conformity has silenced or withheld must be given under the fiercest opposition from enemies of the faith. If we don't take this opportunity now, it's not going to get easier to take later. So here's a few suggestions. I'll break them down for you. Stormco logo on Adventist Community Service shirts, or use a branded vehicle for outreach trips, or both. Would that be terrible? And I completely understand that Stormco has different pillars, and one of the pillars is no strings attached, and somebody might be uncomfortable about the disinterested benevolence article that we put up before. But that is something that is completely achievable. Dual branding our major youth outreach projects. Do you know op shops and community service centres can be branded Adventist Community Services or dual branded? There's actually not a great reason why not. These are generally all run by a local church. Your local church can have an ACS department and it can brand its shop this way, all under your church's insurance already. Some people have told me we can't do this because ours is unique. It's like very local centric. It's already attached to our church. It doesn't have to be. You can walk to our church from here. Things like this. That's what everybody said when they created all of these brands. It's unique, it's different, it's local, it's just us, it has to be different. That sort of thinking has led us to this mess. Elia Wellness, Mums at the Table, and any other SPD or AUC funded project should be branded as an Adventist community service like they used to be. This is the part where they haven't paid me to think in this space, and I'm out on a limb here, and that's fine. But we spend millions of dollars launching new brands, and this is on the front page of both of these websites, this is the only credence or respect given back to the church. These are somewhat undercover ministries of the church. And I'd love to hear the explanation on how this is the best possible thing to bring people to the church. I know that there are bridges and there are pathways eventually when you get deep into these programs, but these could be branded as services of the community of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Number 4, Adventist Community Services is the main public-facing service brand for nations with established churches, communities who have any capacity to serve their own communities. It's in the church manual. Why don't we do it? ADRA helps to coordinate international disasters or heavily funded government projects that require separate ABNs, administrative structures, and serving in countries that are currently hostile towards Christianity. It makes complete sense. That's why it is the way it is internationally. In Australia, we've just taken a different route. This is Papua New Guinea, Boundary Road Adventist Church. And they are all kitted out in their North American Adventist Community Services gear. This is their website. You scroll down, the logo is so big it doesn't fit on the page. And they have a local ACS leader, Mary Dejani. Papua New Guinea is well ahead of us in Adventist Community Services, and they are still a developing nation. But they have the capacity, they figured they had the capacity to serve their community. They wanted to do what the church manual suggested. Like North America, ADRA Australia could invest, this is a suggestion, could invest and assist in building up a healthy network of local church Adventist community service projects and teams, knowing that healthier, stronger local church ministry teams are more able and equipped to help when the big disaster strikes, putting the church name and mission center stage rather than a supporting ministry brand. And this is essentially what the Adventist Review article from 1994 was saying. In order to make ADRA stronger, you should build strong local community service projects. It seems as though we're stuck in an awkward marketing loop where every single project we do has to be advertised really well so that we can convince more people to give more money so that we can do more projects. And this has become the marketing cycle of a lot of our sub-brands. But the Adventist Church has one mission, and it's us and us, it's not us and them. We are not two separate groups of people. We are all Adventists trying to achieve one mission. If the Adventist Church manual is wrong, then the current model of service branding in Australia is better. We should be petitioning the NAD to be more like us. If we've got it right, if our model is better, let's tell the NAD to change. Let's tell them to do it like us. If all these other countries and the NAD following the church manual are doing it better than us, then why don't we consider doing it more like them? The church manual is to make the local church stronger, not worse. So the information in it's probably there for a reason. So since it's all us and we're not two different teams, let's do the best thing that's best for mission. Let's try that. Should we teach a man a fish or give a man a fish? And, this is interesting. Even in a developing nation, there's a church that feels completely capable and responsible for serving its suburb itself. So why don't we let them follow the church manual? And why don't we give them some new branding? Because I don't necessarily agree with the way that North America stuck to the red shield, but that was definitely before the rebranding at the GC in 2017. So there's some improvement to do. Adventist Community Services Australia currently has $0 in the bank. It was shut down in 2004, and the current statistics say that only 14% of Australians like us, and 0% of people think we help people. The Adventist Development Relief Agency currently has $29 million in the bank, and 0% of people think we help people, and 14% of people like us. So how could we use that money to lift up the name of the church? Because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. James Standish in his video says, he quotes loosely a paraphrase of an Ellen White statement that I haven't been able to find, so I'll attribute it to James instead of Ellen White. He says, the way we present ourselves has an important impact on the effectiveness of our evangelism. Well, we've been growing at 2% for the last 25 years, and we can't get off that 2%. We're going backwards in our positivity. We're still completely unfamiliar to about half of Australia. And is it time that we tried something different? Can we please try something new? Can we please do something old? Can we just do what the church manual suggests and look after our own communities? So I hope I haven't offended you. That's not my intention. But we have to... Sorry? It kind of is. No, it's time we did something new. If we want a different outcome, we need different inputs. If you have any questions, Justin now has a microphone too. Russ?
Thanks, back in 1967, I was a pre-teen at a Dorcas Welfare Federation meeting, and there Bruce Price, who was in Victorian Conference and looked after Dorcas, he had the ladies in green giving reports. And if we had taken those surveys back then, I reckon it would have been different, because they told just one simple story of where the ladies were responsible for providing meals for first responders during Victorian bushfires. This was huge. Back then, most people had a black and white or access to a black and white television, and they were watching what was happening with these bushfires. And they put on this... The ladies in green were providing these meals, and Bruce Price was having a bit of a loan of himself, and he said he arrived there an hour before the meal was to be served. The guys were coming in on trucks, And and he said to the ladies, "But what about the potatoes? They're not mashed yet. And we've got this to do and that to do, and we've got these hundreds of guys you're going to feed." And the lady said, "Just sit over there quietly and just ponder, you know." And because she said, "If we mash the potatoes now, they're going to be stone cold." But anyway, they served up hundreds of meals to first responders, police and firefighters and CFA volunteers, and piping hot, you know, delicious savoury vegetables. They sat down and ate it, lined up for seconds. Then they had their apple crumble and custard. And the police issued a plaque to the ladies in green, to the Dorcas Society of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, because they were accustomed to having a half-warmed up pie with a bit of dead horse on it, handed to them by the Salvation Army, God love them, and say, you know, wrap your laughing gear around that, sunshine. But this was a totally different profile of service to the community, and I reckon if we would have had different results from our surveys back then.
Yep.
1967 that was.
Yep. And even on the disciple.org.au website, they're still actually offering these community service volunteer manuals for people looking to start the local church departments. This resource currently exists, it's just completely ignored.
Question over here, Kyle.
Yep.
Thanks, Justin. Is there still a memorandum that involves our Welfare Society or ADRA regarding disaster relief processes?
Justin, in administration, is the one that looks at those
no,
papers.
we still have. Sorry.
Okay, last time there was a disaster, and I was involved in some of these disasters, i.e. floods. We don't attend these now because our system doesn't have that memorandum to go in and work on behalf of...
You mean with the state government?
Yes. Yeah, okay. You can answer that?
So I'll go before you, Justin. 1996, the New South Wales State Government and the Adventist Church signed an agreement with ADCARE, Adventist Community Care, which was the rebranding of Adventist Community Services. That too, along with the local church ministry, was handed over to ADRA in 2000, and then Justin will finish the rest of the story.
And I was a part of the floods in Port Macquarie when I was pastor there. How it happened is the conference would organise the local churches. We had training, and it was done through the church system. It was thought best by the division that be shifted into ADRA. And their connection to the local church was not as direct as the conferences. And basically they decided they couldn't field enough volunteers, so they gave that responsibility back to the state government and said, we can no longer help in an emergency. I was personally furious. I remain furious that we did that. They should have given it back to the conferences because we can do it. And the Salvation Army turns up to feed people. We ran accommodation. And we still could because we have more outlets in Australia than KFC. This morning I was interested in Daniel Ullman. He worked at KFC. Everyone knows at KFC, you can see it everywhere. We have more outlets than KFC across the country. We are set up to help our communities. We've got a better structure than most denominations because we have that centralised, we're not congregational. So we want to go back to the state government. We're working with North New South Wales, so all of New South Wales, Sydney's a bit different because it's a city, but North New South Wales and South New South Wales, we can go back to the government and say, listen, we're here to help whatever you need in a disaster. We go to their planning meetings, we're there as a part of the panel and the discussion preparing, and I would love for us to go back to that. Should have never been, it's dead currently, but our intention is that we revive it.
If we don't get organised, if we don't have local church departments that have some level of training, some level of interest, ready to answer their phone, it'll remain dead. The intention is that we revive the local church Adventist Community Service Department so that we can go back to the New South Wales State Government and say we are ready to serve. We have 120 outlets across New South Wales. Questions? James, you've got a loud enough voice.
So if I put my new Adventist Community Services logo next to my faith in headline,
Yeah. You can put it next to the Faith FM logo. I consider Faith FM to be a service of the Adventist Community Services Church, and I'll be working to dual brand it as best I can. Every time I print a shirt, it has an Adventist logo on it as well. And until administration decides otherwise, that's the best I can do.
And you may notice we do a Faith FM weekly program from the conference office called The Perfect Storm. We get in a lot of trouble about it because we're a bit wild. But we wear our shirts that say Seventh-day Adventist on Faith FM YouTube channel. We get comments back saying, are you guys Adventists? Because they didn't know Faith FM was. We believe Faith FM should be branded with the Adventist name as well. No, Phil's the only normal one on there. Phil's the only normal one on there.
It's a low standard for normal.
It's a bit wild. Anyway.
Is the what?
Hang on, I'll give you the microphone, step one. Here's the question.
No, I mean, is there a team going around to the local churches,
Which
talking
team?
to them? I mean, from you guys to teach the...
Yeah,
local-
so I get around churches and I preach on this topic, and I'm happy to visit your church. A number of you have heard this already and you're bored a long time ago, so happy to make more people bored.
There are existing churches, and I'll pick on Albury. Albury have a op shop that's run under their ADRA brand. That's fine. Yeah, they have an agreement with ADRA. We're not going to disturb any existing stuff. Just moving forward, we want to put Adventist Community Services absolutely smack bang in the centre of the map. And we are, you may notice around this camp, you've seen a couple of things about it. We've only just begun. Kyle was appointed how many weeks ago?
At least 2.
2 weeks. So give us a couple of years and you might see some stuff. We want to really make... There's a whole lot of other reasons we want local churches to govern an op shop. The way funds are used and everything is determined by the local board. We don't want a parallel structure to our existing structure. We want to work within the current structure. There are legal things that ADRA have to go through which we 100% support, but this is not that. This is local stuff. And we are planning on purchasing a facility in Queanbeyan. Do I see Caleb in the room? Where it can double as a church, but an Adventist Community Services op shop centre. We can't call them centres. Big op shop that will raise money that the local church will determine how that money is used. And there's no government regulations upon that because we're not taking government funds as ACS. Keeping away from that.
Question up here, Justin.
Oh, sorry.
When ADRA dropped us from the disaster relief or helping out with disasters, was that just done on an ADRA level? Did they consult division or anything? Or, it seems that they should have put a plan in place that something followed.
I can't speak about what happened up at those decisions, but I know we weren't involved in it. I was president in North New South Wales at the time. There's Ben up the back there.
We'll go to this one. Oh, you got a mic.
Oh, mate, that was one of the best presentations I've ever heard. I just wanted to say, Kyle, we love you. And even though you didn't give me a glass of water when I got here, this was... But I will say, from the North American division, I helped organize our evangelistic response in North America. And one of the big challenges we face in North America, it's a much larger church system, and it lumbers along like a big ship, and it's difficult to move. And as we try to reverse what we've done is allowed ourselves to be tied into, you have local church food pantries, and they can't talk about Jesus Christ because they've taken this ginormous amount of government funds and state funds, and it's very difficult. And just fundamentally, I'm affirming what you're talking about. In North America, we're reversing course on this. and I'm not speaking on behalf of the division, but just anecdotally in an observation, what we're suggesting is where you are right now, and it's going to take us a little bit more time to get there, is that ACS is the local response and spiritual care provider for crisis. It's the local response to that. And ADRA provides our international response. And I'm a humanitarian. That's what I teach. That's what I do. That's who I am. And when I show up in disaster zones, nobody cares if you're a Christian or a Muslim or an atheist. And so that works well for ADRA. But in the local context, you need ACS to be able to say, you can have this sandwich and you can have this food, and we're here for you after this fire. But we stand as an ongoing presence in our community, and we provide spiritual support if you want to take that journey with Jesus Christ. And if you're not able to do that, the Australian government does $242 billion in welfare services every single year. The local church will never be able to do that. So our spiritual, unique, specific identity is that we are Seventh-day Adventist community services, and we can provide support beyond this sandwich, beyond this fire, and that's critical. So thank you so much. You're a tall pot. No, I'm just joking. Thank you so much, Cal.
Thank you, John. I was talking to Derek Lee, the North American director for ACS, and I said, aren't people, like they've just lost their house, something's just burnt down, aren't they offended that you would show up on behalf of a church? Isn't that a bit threatening? He said, no, quite the opposite. If we're not there in the hard times, they don't want to know us in the good times. If you can be there in the hard times, well, you're a part of the community. We want to be, a part of you. But if you can't even help in the hard times, we don't want to know about you.
Amen to that. Amen to that. So that was good. I'm going to back that up. So I like that we're rebranding, bringing ourselves central again. I just wanted to know, what's the marketing plan to drive it outside of Adventists?
If, for example, our community service centres were branded as Seventh-day Adventist community service op shops, then that's the point of contact. That's your community service centre. That's where you get the feel for the vibe, for what's happening in the town, for who needs what. That's where your brand starts to spread. When you become the centre of your community, when you become a church part of a community rather than a church in a community or separate from a community like John was talking about. I think he actually just lifted that out of this blue ACS manual because I found it in there. So I found the source of his sermons. But every time you wear your hat in public, you are bringing back one more point of recognition. The old statistic used to be it takes 7 subconscious exposures to a brand before you start to recognize it consciously. And not 1 in 3 Australians has seen any Seventh-day Adventist marketing material in 2022.
So if you're a good driver, you don't cut people off and speed, putting one of those Adventist Community Services stickers on your car. If you're not so great on the road, don't put one on your car. But the more exposure we can give this, there are no shortcuts with this stuff. This is now hard yards, but at least we've got a clear brand. And we're engaging very deliberately and specifically into our communities. We already have been, but as you've seen, I couldn't work out what half that stuff is. What chance does the local yokel have to work out who's who in the zoo? It's crazy. So we're already doing this stuff. The amount of food pantries and stuff that go on currently is quite incredible. But the local community have no idea across the country that we do such things. This is a way just to bring an awareness. There's no shortcuts. You've got to be there when it matters. And that's going to win the day. And we are well behind because of the past, but today's the day we can only take charge of. And so moving forward, this is how we want to roll under Adventist Community Services. Even in Fiji, my brother here is going back to his village, who he's been working in for ages, but he's been buying the merch here from Kyle, and he's going to be wearing it there, like they do in PNG. And I've seen them wearing that stuff up there in Papua New Guinea. And you found one, didn't you, at Young Church, Kyle?
Yeah, I was preaching at Young on this topic. We were standing there having lunch, and I looked to my left, and on the side of the fridge, there's a magnet, an old red shield for Adventist Community Services. As I was peeling it off the fridge, the paint was coming with it. It's been there its whole life. The thing's brand new. It's never left that fridge since the late 80s or something. There's a mark, there's an indentation left on the fridge that says Adventist Community Services. It's quite a little analogy. The longer you stick around, the more imprinted you are. And so it is the long haul. It is going to take time for this to stick. I sent a photo of that to my nana as I drove home. I pulled over, I sent a photo, then I started driving again. That's right. And my nana said, oh, yeah, that's all we used to do in the 70s and 80s. I've probably got a patch or a badge or something. Let me check my drawer. My nana's like 94 or something, and she finds a patch, like an old Pathfinder patch, and this little pin about the size of your fingernail. And now my mum has them, and she's bringing them this weekend, so I might wear that around on Sabbath. So that stuff was the done thing, and it was everywhere, and we've just given it up. So
our workshop tomorrow, Kyle, what are you going to cover?
So I'm actually putting this one on the professor because he lectures in this stuff, and so there's quite a number of things that you wouldn't think are relevant or appropriate that actually could work. And so I'm actually asking John to share with us a bunch of different ideas that have been profitable in this space for Adventist Community Services.
That was Professor John Boston.
Professor John Boston from Andrews University has travelled all this way to share on this topic and other things as well. And then Thursday, I was thinking we show them the videos of the Queanbeyan opportunity, see if there's any interest, any support, any interest in... I know that other churches have buildings available to them that are currently unutilized. So we want to get you thinking and dreaming about what's possible in your space.
And let's just say really quickly, we know op shops, Kyle, that are not under the conference, not under ADRA, but local churches have started up op shops. What sort of annual turnover are we talking with ones we personally know about?
More than $1 million, easily.
A year, like a $1.3 million profit from the local op shop because it's run properly. We want them to be run properly, and once we start one, that gives us a platform to start another and another and another, and this will fund our work into our communities that we have no strings attached to. And we are very excited about this, and it's a real opportunity. The world is on an economic cliff. The price of gold just last week hit $3,250 an ounce American. It's over $5,100 an ounce. That's a canary in a coal mine. The debt of the world is going to catch up with it very, very soon, and your community might be today rich and increased with goods, but it doesn't mean it will be next year. And there's some big stuff going on in the world. We don't know when and all those things, but we want to be ready. We think needs will increase according to my Bible, not decrease. So we want to get these Adventist community centres, which are op shops, but also places we can offer help, we can do all sorts of things, as well as employ a Bible worker to do Bible studies out of there. We're not having any strings attached to what we're doing. So we've got an opportunity of a really neat building in Queanbeyan that we think would be a very profitable venture if we run it right, and that's going to create a platform then to branch into other towns across our conference.
Phil?
We've got to see this.
It's the most faithful merch wearer here. Thank you, sir. Adventist Community Services on a plaque.
He did that on the fly. I'll hand it to you to close with prayer then, mate.
That's
when
it.
You're ready.
Let's have a prayer. Thank you, Brian. Father, we thank you for a chance to unpack the past, and we thank you for structure, organisation. We thank you that the church is God's appointed agency for the salvation of men, and it knows its mission, and that it's us and us, Lord. It's not us and them. We all need to work better together to accomplish your goals, so we pray that you'd lead and inspire in the local church. that you'd help our conference to dream dreams and to see visions of what's possible when we lift you and your church higher. Father, we ask that you'd bless these efforts and that your kingdom growth would be the main outcome. Amen.